You know who hasn't been vilified enough? You know who hasn't taken enough wrath from the state, big tech, corporate media, celebrities, their own employers, their own family and friends? The unvaccinated. They've really just had it too easy. But don't worry, because British comedian Jimmy Carr is here to set that straight.
Well, let's talk about the controversial thing, the vaccine. Who's not going to take the vaccine because they think it might be dangerous? Raise your hands. Now take that hand and slap yourself in the fucking face. The spread of COVID was directly linked to how dense the population is, and some of the population really quite fucking dense.
Jimmy Carr, his dark material. Oh wow, so dark, so edgy. Huddle, you're stupid. You didn't take your 15th Pfizer booster jab. So subversive. If you close your eyes, it's almost like Bill Hicks and George Carlin have returned from the grave. Publicly shaming a minority of people who have chosen not to undergo a medical procedure, despite being relentlessly coerced by the threat of violent government persecution, social ostracization, and the abolition of their basic freedoms. Yeah, Jimmy, that's so dark and edgy. Such an edgelord. Jimmy Carr, his darkest material tour 2030, wherein Jimmy gets people who haven't taken the Pfizer brain chip up on stage to be publicly flogged and humiliated. And no, his joke isn't just a tiny bit I picked out of a 3-hour routine. And I don't doubt that Carr had funnier bits elsewhere. But this is the bit that Carr and Netflix have chosen as the main promotional vehicle for the entire show. They first posted the clip last week, didn't do so well. They then posted it again a few days ago, now it's trending. They're really pushing this one clip to promote the entire show. When does Jimmy Carr start doing material denying women the right to abortion? It's the logical path for him to take as he wishes to deny people their freedom of choice. Alternatively, if you want to see comedians performing material they write themselves, go to a comedy club. Notice he didn't slap his own face because that thing would fall apart like a fucking clown car. Yeah, seems like Jimmy's a big fan of injections. Apparently, when Carr tried this bit, he got completely owned by someone in the audience and had security throw them out. That's not making it into the Netflix special. What's next, Jimmy? Singling out and embarrassing people who can't feed themselves because they didn't have the COVID QR code Vax Pass to get into Tesco's. So edgy. Woke comedians always bang on about not punching down. Unless you're punching down on a group of people who have been suitably demonized and monstered by leftists and the mainstream media, then I guess it's fine. Spare a thought for Jimmy Carr though, because we've seen this process all too many times before. He cut his teeth, he made a name out of being offensive and edgy. YouTube search Jimmy Carr, his most offensive joke ever. I say search it because if I put a clip of it in this video, they ban it. The joke is about mosquitoes, Africans, and a certain immunodeficiency infection that was really bad in the 80s. That was all fine until 2015, when the mob took over. When comedy stopped being about being funny and started being about amplifying glib woke mantras. When comedians stopped telling jokes and started laboriously lecturing the audience. When they stopped caring about laughs and started seeking after polite applause instead. When their privileged place on the merry-go-round of TV panel shows was put under threat if they didn't cave to the ideological cult. Now that Jimmy's truly offensive material has been deemed verboten by the purity thought police, he's restricted to making fun of people who have cost Pfizer an extra few billion on their already record profit margin. Corporate and state-sponsored satire. So dark. So edgy. Look at what happened to Frankie Boyle. He used to tell jokes about disabled kids. Now he's on Twitter getting angry at people for not using the correct transgender pronouns. Yeah, the same dude who literally spent years mocking children with severe learning difficulties is now claiming to have the moral high ground. But hey, it worked for him. Now he's got his own primetime BBC show, where he spends an hour sitting around with other talentless conformist hacks amplifying establishment rhetoric about climate change, Black Lives Matter, racism and Brexit. You'd be forgiven for thinking you were still watching the corporate news and it's just run a bit late. No, that's Frankie Boyle's New World Order, just with swearing. Jonathan Pye, he's another one. Used to defend edgy, offensive free speech in comedy. Gets a BBC show, and now he's screaming at you for not wearing a mask.
Put a fucking mask on.
This you, Jonathan? There's a new show called Comedians Giving Lectures. How is that new? They've already been doing it for the past 6 years. But Paul, you're trying to cancel Jimmy Carr. Triggered? No, I'm not marching on Netflix's HQ and demanding his show be wiped out of existence. I'm just pointing out how political correctness and weaponized establishment mob psychology has made British comedy tedious, predictable, and stale. But listen, I know people who know Jimmy Carr, and like in most cases, Jimmy was once one of the good guys. Now they're all hollowed out vassals, pathetically dependent on recycling regime talking points to maintain any kind of platform or relevance. Well, I hope it was worth it, Jimmy. I hope it was worth it.
It's absolutely crucial for you to help me fight the war on free speech by supporting me via Subscribe Star, link in description, and also signing up for my free newsletter at summit.news/newsletter.